think I'm recording now. Hopefully I am. But hello, my name is Angela Bueno, and this is my project for my sex and culture class. The topic I'll be focusing on is gendered expectations, and yeah, I hope you enjoy. So, what are gendered expectations? Gender expectations are societal beliefs about how individuals, specifically men and women, should behave, express themselves, and interact with others based on their gender. Media, socialization, and culture contribute to the development of gender norms and how they differ across time and place. So, my claim for my project is gender expectations reinforce unequal social roles by pressuring individuals to conform to traditional norms, such as associating leadership with masculinity. So, gender norms have been around for pretty much all of our lives. Everyone has an expectation for both a man and a woman, and everyone usually thinks, oh, the man's the money maker who goes out and, takes care of his family. He's the one who should be providing and basically doing everything for the family, while the woman stays at home, takes care of her kids, cooks for the family, cleans the house. Like, that's like the stereotypical traditional way people think of it that way. And obviously over time, now that we're obviously in 2025, things aren't going to be the same. But that's not to say the least that these gender norms obviously aren't around. They're probably not as visible as before, but they are still around. I would say that I see gender norms a lot more in like certain workspaces, because most of these workspaces consist of just men, or they are more men based, I would say. So continuing off of that, this is more of like a bit of my input and kind of how like I've seen things. So I'm a daughter of two Hispanic parents. They're both Colombian. So basically, all my life while I was raised around a lot of Hispanics and just like family in general, very family orientated. And obviously, I've lived in the United States all my life. So growing up with like a single mother and how empowering she is, how like woman can do everything for herself, like it was like such a different perspective that I grew up with, because I grew up with a perspective of being like a woman can do what a man can do, point blank, period. No questions asked. But then, as I got older and I started visiting my family's home country, which is Colombia, I noticed that there is a lot of machismo when I do go back to Colombia. And it's usually like the way I would explain it is like kind of going back into time. I say this because most women who live in Colombia are stay-at-home moms and they don't work, and the man or their husband are usually the ones who go out work, while the mother stays home and cooks, cleans, and takes care of the children and waits for the kids to get back from school. So seeing that was a bit of like a culture shock for me, because I'm not used to that. I'm used to like, oh, like I can do that myself. I can go and make the money myself and do this for myself and do that, because of the way I grew up. So going back to Colombia was a bit of a culture shock at first when I started to see that, but obviously it's not always the case scenario. So what is machismo? Because this leads into my gendered expectations. Machismo is the construct which describes beliefs and expectations regarding the role of men in society. It is a set of values, attitudes, beliefs about masculinity, or what it is to be a man, and it typically involves the belief that the men should be dominant and women should be more submissive. So basically, machismo is kind of gender expectations, but in the Spanish way, I would describe it. So I'm going to talk about how things have changed, obviously. So now that we're in 2025, there's a lot of like feminism and just like a lot of woman empowerment and just women fighting for basically what we think is right for us. Um, Over the past few years, things have obviously changed. Like, women are running for president, which was obviously probably way back in time not common at all whatsoever to see a woman at the White House in general. So things have come to change. But that still does not mean that these things don't happen on a day-to-day basis. You probably will get a backhanded response, or you'll get like backhanded situations where you don't realize that it is stereotypical, which is sad to say the least. But while I was looking for some articles from like class and like just researching a bit, one that I came across, which we had to read for one of our lessons beforehand, was moreover, men, women were hunters too. Obviously, hunting is not a common thing for women. So, seeing this really struck my interest. I'm just going to give a small summary of the article. So in this article, a recent study of 63 modern foraging, I hope I said that right, societies found that women played a dominant role in hunting, challenging the traditional notion of a strict gender division of labor. The study, led by a team of female researchers, and analyzed ethnographic reports and found evidence of deliberate female hunting in 87% of societies where hunting was a primary food source. The findings highlight the importance of diverse perspective in anthropology and the potential for overlooked historical narratives. I really thought the article was very interesting overall, and it just really gave like a big impact of how like women were a big deal in hunting back in time, which was really interesting to find out, because usually when I hear hunting, I expect a man, which is obviously not something that I should expect, but obviously during those times it was way more common. So now I'm just going to give my final thoughts on gendered expectations. Obviously, I said before, I grew up with a single mother, so my mother is a big inspiration to me, and just seeing how she's been able to do things on her own, because a lot of people expect, oh, like you probably have a man behind the scenes. No, it's always been my mom. And so gender expectations really just doesn't like make sense to me, because I always feel like a woman can do what a man can do. My mom taught me how to drive. My mom taught me how to check my like oil, everything that involves a car where men are expected to be in that realm. My mom knew everything about it. So I usually my perspective is that I'm able to do what a man does, and that I don't fall into, that little perspective where like, like everyone expects like only men to do certain things. But I think that women honestly have the potential to do anything that a man can do, and that we shouldn't be subjective into these categories. But obviously, we get downplayed in work areas and work fields, such as like, women who work in the stock market, or like they work with like, big businessmen, like, or lawyers. Like, women are very downplayed in those certain areas because men have such a big role. And hopefully over time that will change, but for now we'll just see how things go. But those are kind of my thoughts on gendered expectations, and these are some of my sites that I used for my project. I kind of led on my personal opinion on this, but I did do some research for it. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much.